Hola a todos, buenos días. Muchas gracias por estar con nosotros en esta clase de Digital Marketing que hemos organizado para ustedes con Bayswater College y con Extudia. Ya los vamos a poner en contacto con la clase para que puedan acceder a ella. Recuerden que cada módulo lo vamos a ver cada sábado a las 11 de la mañana. Entonces hoy vamos a tener el primer módulo y dentro de 8 días el siguiente. Muchas gracias por estar con nosotros.
In today, so we'll just give it a couple of minutes and let any latecomers join, and then we'll go ahead and get started.
Jamie, let's start.
Yeah? Cool, no problem. Great, so we'll go ahead and get started. So today we're looking at SEO, and it's such a big topic to cover in the 1 hour. So what I'm aiming to do is just kind of give you a pit stop tour across the kind of key points. Then we're going to go into one SEO strategy that I've used a lot in my own company. And then we're going to look at some case studies. Also remember that there is the Q&A and comment section, so do use that because I have left time at the end to have a bit of conversation and go through any questions you may have about any of the topics. So as we go through, feel free to drop in any questions as they come up, and then we'll be able to review them at the end. So please do use that function. So as I said, we'll kind of get started with a pit stop tour around the key areas of SEO. You know, the reason we do SEO is for rankings. So ranking is the most important part, an element of search engine optimization. And the best way to go around it is to be really strategic and kind of forward thinking about how you want to be ranking and what you want to be ranking for. So with this comes a lot of keyword research, and you can use a number of tools to do this. But what we would always suggest is to have one primary keyword, so that is the main keyword you want to be targeting, and then up to 3 or 4 secondary and tertiary keywords as well. So when it comes to ranking, you might want to look at your company and marketing goals. Depending on what those are, you might choose different keywords. As you've looked at in your online course details, there are different parts of the user journeys, and we can use SEO to target different stages. So if your goals were more acquisition driven, you would probably target keywords that show that the buyer has higher intent, that the buyer might be looking to make that purchase right there and then. And keywords are, through keywords, you're able to really pick out what that intent is and understand where they're at in the journey. The example I think that is always used is around technology and mobile phones. So if we wanted someone that was ready to buy a mobile phone, we might look at, buy iPhone black, 16 gigabytes and stuff like that. So the more detail they give in the keyword, the more likely they are to buy. So that's kind of the key point to start with, is look at who you're looking to target based on your marketing goals, and then do the keyword research and targeting to back that up. You then want to look at engagement. So is there people searching for that keyword? Because there isn't. If there isn't, then it's a bit of a lost exercise. A good thing to keep in mind is, depending on your industry, you might have varying levels of search volumes. So for example, in B2B businesses, the search volume is usually lower because you're more targeted. In new brands, the search volume is lower, and that comes back to your marketing goals. You know, for new brands, you should be looking at awareness. So you might be looking at kind of broader keywords that you can use to introduce your brand to a new audience and a new space in search. You might also want to look at competitor rankings. That's always really, really good. And there's a number of tools that allow you to do that. Moz, SEMrush, allow you to put in your competitor's website. And from that, you can pull every keyword they rank for in any geography that you look at. A lot of our clients at Monumental Marketing work across the US and the UK and even the Middle East. So there we start getting into, so we have to be really careful if we're targeting the US versus the UK, and looking at then how we use and apply that language to target the right people. And the final thing you'd want to look at when you start your rankings and your planning is upcoming keywords and upcoming trends. So understanding these trends can actually make a huge impact on your business. If you're the first to rank and you're the first to jump on something that is coming up or something that is gaining more traction, there's going to be a higher chance of you ranking much more highly for that keyword. And one of the examples that I've got of a company that we've worked with shows exactly that. We were able to spot a trend and start developing content and developing an SEO plan that would target that trend, which would allow us to rank higher, rank first, and then get all that traffic. The reason why it's important to rank highly is that 95% of people click on the first result. So if you're not the first, you're missing out a huge amount of traffic. Then 50% of people, out of that 5%, 50% then click on the second, and it just gets lower and lower from there on. So it's kind of said that if you're not between 1 and 3, then it doesn't really matter. So that's why SEO is important. And then if we look at the different aspects of SEO, so we've got on-page, off-page, and technical. Technical, if we start with that one, is said to account for 10% of your rankability and your SEO power. So it's not really much. And the reason we look at it and we do it anyway is because it's an easy tick box. The tech aspect is something that we have full control over, and it's usually quite easy and quick changes. It might just be things like your images are too large, there's code in your website that is being unused, there might be some dead pages, and that is just an easy cleanup that you can do on a regular basis, maybe once a quarter, once every 6 months, just as an easy way to just give you some more brownie points. When we look at non-SEO'd websites, so websites that haven't had kind of any SEO love and care prior, you'd probably expect to see quite a high number of tech problems. And as I explained, usually these are quite small, such as, you know, missing meta titles or large pages or big images, things like that. So it's a quick and easy thing to change, and it just gives you that kind of tick box right away. So tech, really important, although it only accounts for the 10%. Next up, we have off-page. So off-page is actually said to account for 60% of your SEO, which is really, really important. So off-page is everything that happens outside of your website. So these are things such as social media, backlinks, digital press, so anything that drives traffic to your website. The reason it's important is that it gives you trust and credibility in Google's eyes. So Google will look at millions of websites every minute of every day, and it will flag the websites that have the most traffic directed from outside the website, because that shows to Google that not only are people interested in the content, but other publishers feel that your source is important, is valuable, and is adding, it's almost like thought leadership, you know, it's showing Google that you know what you're talking about because other people think you do. So it's really, really important. And this, as I said, is completely what happens outside your website. And usually when I'm pitching for SEO to any of my clients, the question they always ask after I say this is then, why do we bother with content and on page if everything comes from outside the website? And the reason is that nobody can link to your website unless there's things to link to. You know, you need content to show that leadership, show that thoughts, and most importantly, get the rankings. Rankings are based on the content that is available on your website. The backlinks only push that up. So the backlinks promote the content, but you need that high quality content on your website, which takes me perfectly onto on-page SEO. So as I just mentioned, on-page SEO is everything that happens on your website, and that usually comes down to good quality content. As you've seen in your course, there's some initial tips as to how to get the perfect content. So these are things such as the length of the content, the kind of words that you use and shouldn't use. So little things around wording are, you know, transition words. It's really important to use transition words because that tells Google that there's a clear narrative. So these are things such as, well, therefore, however, in conclusion. So things that show that there's a clear narrative within your content that get people from A, maybe it's the concept, to B, to understanding the full concept. So that's really, really important. And then Google really hates when people say things such as it may, or it can, or it could. You need to be really assertive with your writing, and that's what good SEO writing looks like. It's nothing that's opinion based, it's factual. You know, this equals this, which means this. There's no ambiguity, and that will allow you to rank higher. Google doesn't want to rank people that don't know what they're talking about, and an easy way to show Google that you know what you're talking about is by being assertive with your writing. And then, of course, there's things such as the length of the content. Always try and write at least 450 words, and so on. So all of that is covered in your course as well. Usually, the next question that comes up after this is around, okay, cool. So how do we then structure that content? Because it's not just about the writing. It's also about the way that it's structured. And for this, I want to share my screen and show you how we do it at Monumental, and I'm sure other people do it as well. Bear with me one second. So this looks a little scary, but as we delve into it, it's going to be a bit clearer. So we start off with the pages. So this is something that we were working on at Monumental. We've just recently had a web redesign and a vamp up. And the first thing we had to look at was looking at what content was ranking well and what on our pages was helping us rank well, and how do we retain that and build on that. So the easiest way to structure this is by using an Excel sheet like you see here. Within this, we will put our link. So that's the link to the page that we're working on. We'll clearly flag our H1s, H2s, page content. So this is just a really easy way to start thinking more strategically, but more important, more structured about the way you go about creating content. So as you see here, this is our homepage. So our H1 has to be Monumental Marketing. We need to rank first for that keyword no matter what. It's our branded keyword. Because of our domain name, which is monumentalmarketing.co.uk, we would rank for that potentially even without this, but it's just important to back that up, especially because we work across the globe, so we need that to rank everywhere you look. H2s is where we use supporting keywords. So the way we would split this out is we go for H1, which is either the most important or branded keyword. And important usually comes from the search volumes. So a good example of this would be if the word marketing has 1,000 searches a month and the word PR has 10 searches a month, we would make the word marketing a H1. Because what that means is that there's going to be more competition for the word marketing because more people are looking for it. So you want to give that word the most attention and the most importance on the page. And that's what a H1 does. A lot of my clients go down the route of wanting to make everything H1s, and that doesn't work. that will kind of show up as spammy, and it won't really make sense to Google. You want to have a pyramid structure to your content. You have your H1s at the top, a couple of H2s, H3s, H4s, and so on. On our homepage, we don't have that much written content. So for this reason, we only stick to H1s and H2s. As we delve deeper into the website, that's where the content might get a bit more expanded, where there might be more niche keywords that we can target. And that's where we would build out our H2s, H3s, and H4s. As you can see here, we've stuck to one H1, couple of H2s, and built out the content from there. I mean, this could actually be improved further. So this bit at the top, before the gray line, is what the website was before. The bit at the bottom shows how it's going to work for us better. So we have our services, which are in H1s and H2s, and then we have our keywords that are flagged as well. Marketing Company London gets quite a bit of traction, but not enough to have its own page, so we stuck it in as a H2. The other thing that I want you guys to also look at is outbound links. So these are links that we're driving to other pages within our website, which is called internal linking. The reason we do this is that it shows Google a clear path. Sorry, I'm just kicking things over. It shows Google a clear path as to where a user can go. And it shows that there's a bit of discovery that can happen on your website, that it's not just a dead end. So internal linking is really important from a usability point of view and from a Google point of view, but also from a rankability point of view. The homepage on a website will be the page that always has the highest page authority. And domain authority and page authority are something that is covered in your course. So because it's got the highest authority, that means it's got the highest power. So if we put other links to our website within the pages that have the highest power, they're going to distribute some of that power across the different parts of your website. Because the last thing you want is a website that has a really strong homepage and really low and kind of weak supporting pages, because that just means that you're kind of putting all your eggs in one basket. So it's really important to get people across the website, spread that power, so that gives you more chance of rankability on a number of different keywords for a number of different pages in search engine results pages. So that's kind of like the way we go about it. So let me just stop sharing my screen. And that's sort of the pit stop tour of the most important parts of SEO. So that's your tech, which is 10%, your off-page, which is 60%, and your on-page, which accounts for 30% of your SEO. The next thing I want to talk to you guys about is something that can be applied to pretty much any website in the world. And it's a really trendy SEO strategy at the moment. So this is called content hubs. Content hubs are absolutely amazing for rankability. And what they do is they basically allow you to create a crazy amount of content. Usually you'd want to create a new piece of content every week and have a place that they can live on the website. As we said, internal linking is really important because it drives more traffic, it drives more authority to other pages. And that's what content hubs are designed to do. The other opportunity that comes from content hubs is that usually you don't just put a link within an article or within a page. You would hyperlink a certain word to drive traffic to the other page. The good thing about content hubs is that you can use secondary and tertiary keywords within your content to drive people back to your homepage or back to service pages. So if you have a website design that's a bit like ours, that you want to keep key pages quite minimalist and quite focused on very little content, that means that they're not really going to have a chance to rank as highly because there isn't enough content to back that up. So what a content hub does is that it supports these key pages that can't have too much content by diversifying keywords, diversifying content that can push those pages up, because you're going to use those pages as your sort of cornerstone within the content. And that's really, really important. So the kind of brands that are doing this really well are CMO by Adobe. They have created sort of like a mini brand within their website to push this traffic, and really targeted. CMOs are chief marketing officers. So they know who their audience is. They're being really targeted, and they've created this whole area within their website that allows for content build and content creation, but most importantly, will increase the rankability of their focus keywords and focus pages. There's also some of our clients that have done it really well. And I've got an example here, which is a client that we've been working with for quite some time. And they're a huge online grocery store. They're an e-commerce site. So because of the nature of an e-commerce site, people don't go there to read pages and pages about a product. Most of the time, they know what they're looking for, and it's just a case of showing them as many options as possible for them to actually convert and purchase something. So with that in mind, it was actually quite difficult to think, how are we going to get these guys to rank higher when you can't really do much content or much SEO within these kind of product pages or category pages? And that's where our content hub came in really handy. So within this content hub, we're writing huge pieces around fruit and milk and stuff like that. And the client at first, thankfully, he put all his trust in us. He was like, you guys know what you're doing, crack on. And at first we were like, okay, this is quite different to, the technology and other like education and stuff like that we've worked in before. Will it work the same? Because it's a highly, highly competitive market. There's big players. We're competing against Waitrose, Sainsbury's, Marks and Spencer's, really huge players, really big companies. And I think it took about 2 months for them to be the first rank in the UK when you type in milk delivery and things like that. And after that, it was just a snowball effect with everything else. We're number 2 for fruit baskets, where, it's really built up massively because of this content hub. So this content hub really gave us an opportunity to develop our content further and drive all this traffic, all these keywords and all this rankability towards these different product and category pages. So that's a really cool tip. And there's so much online about content hubs. The good thing with them, as I said, they're still quite new. So if you have a competitor that you've been trying to kind of get ahead on Google for ages, a content hub could really help you do that. So highly recommend checking them out. And in terms of what they allow you to do as well is they allow you to really build out a customer's journey so that it's more, you're adding context to what they're doing. And we're currently working with a global music brand, and their customer journey was really difficult because there's so much media and there's so much, videos and images because, it's entertainment, it's music, of course it's going to be. So understanding where to fit content was really difficult while still maintaining really good user journeys. And a content hub is really allowing us to do that because we're able to subsidize the journeys with content, but at the same time, create all these new entry points for people to come in through the website with this content hub. So it's a huge topic, and I won't go into it in too much detail today, but I will show you some examples of it. As we said, the good opportunity here is just that it increases rankability. And you can use it a bit like a blog, but just be more strategic with it. Know who you're wanting to target and what you're wanting to target when it comes to keywords, and use that content hub and those articles to really do that successfully. So a good example of this is actually on our own website, on the Monumental website. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. So we've named our content hub messages, which basically encapsulates everything that we do. And there's kind of 3 main strands to our business. And we really wanted to reflect that in our content so we can drive traffic from really targeted niches within our industry to our website. So this is the main page on the hub. Let me just expand that a little bit. And the cool thing to think about as well with hub is that it doesn't have to be chronological. That's the kind of the main difference between a hub and a blog. Blogs are chronological, so whatever's at the top is the most recent. Whereas with hubs, you're able to kind of hero and highlight different pieces of content at different times, depending on the impact they have on your brand. So that's our kind of main landing pages, and we split up our content within smaller hubs as well. So we have our PPC and SEO. So within this is all the news and all our kind of targeting and content for those specific channels. And what you'll notice is that we've then created smaller pages within that just encapsulate that content. We know that a lot of people are looking for PPC and SEO news, which is why that is the H1 for this page. And within this are all these different articles that we know people are looking for. So I think the social media ones are the ones that are performing the highest at the moment. And within this, you will see popular topics that people would be searching for. So TikTok, huge new topic. We've just partnered with them at Monumental for the UK. So people are searching, marketeers are like, oh my God, this is a new channel. Where do we find information? But the good thing is that it's really targeted. So we're targeting marketing people who would usually be our clients, but by offering them value. Through this, we're now ranking for TikTok, and you can see why it all kind of starts to come together and make sense. Within this article for TikTok, we have a clear call to action, which is social media agency in London. So if someone reads it and they're like, okay, this is really interesting, there's a lot that can be done, let me get in touch. And that sort of brings me on to my next point around measuring success and reporting within Google. So, sorry, within SEO. I think that's probably going to be the kind of biggest part of our session today. The general thinking around SEO is that it's good to drive traffic, it's good to raise visibility of your brand, because of course it's getting seen more. But a lot of people, and this is sort of like an old traditional marketing way of thinking about it, are unclear as to how to measure success on SEO, because there's so many metrics. And you can measure traffic, you can measure visibility, you can measure rankings. There's literally metrics and numbers wherever you look. But the important thing is knowing what you're looking for and what your goals are. And that's why it's quite important to establish this at the start. So as we said at the start of the session, you'd really want your SEO to be in line with your marketing and company goals. So if your goals are around acquisition, so selling stuff, getting people to sign up, getting people to get in touch, that would be an acquisition-driven goal, because you're wanting people to perform a specific action on your website once they land there. So if your goals were very acquisition driven, then your SEO metrics should reflect that. You should be looking at, okay, how many people are signing up to our newsletters, or clicking the contact page, clicking to download our ebook or our white paper. So those would be acquisition-driven goals, and you can measure all of that in analytics quite easily. So at the top of analytics, there's your different segments. So you can just choose to pick organic traffic, and that will show you what people that are coming in through SEO are doing, and how they're kind of acting on their website, where they're going, how long they're staying, and stuff like that. So with that, I want to show you a report that we do for our clients every 3 months, which shows the kind of key metrics on SEO. And this is for the groceries client that I kind of mentioned earlier. So I'll just show you the way we lay it out and the way that we kind of make sense of the data, because I think that's really important, is to know what we're looking for from our SEO. So we did this big review, and we always split the reviews up in this sort of format. So we start off with the Google updates, and this is quite an important topic. Google used to update its algorithms and its kind of way of working, usually like once a year. Up to about 2 years ago, it would only do a kind of major update once a year. Those would usually be around usability and quality of the service, as opposed to actual rankability of pages. As Google kind of gained more traction, SEO became a bigger thing, e-commerce, digital kind of took over marketing. And I mean, if anything, after this pandemic, digital is, the fundamental part of any business. The updates got way more frequent, they happen way more often, they were way more dramatic than ever before, which meant that they actually started having a real impact on businesses. There's a number of companies that have gone out of business because they weren't able to keep up with the updates. But hey, that's why people like me have a job and pay our bills, is because we're able to keep up with this update on behalf of our clients. So that is something quite important to flag at the top of any SEO report, or anytime you're doing any reporting yourself, to think, okay, did anything happen that could have set me back, or some updates actually push websites up. So it's just a case of understanding what that update is and understanding then how you work with it. So if we look at the ones from the kind of last 16 months, there was 5 major updates that we felt was worth flagging. And I think these will be actually quite helpful for you even to understand what these updates entail and how they could affect your website. So if we start off at the top, in August 2019, we had a feature snippet update. So feature snippets are, I'm sure you've experienced this before, if you type in a question on Google, you sometimes don't even need to click onto the website because they will pull out the kind of key information or the answer to that question within the search engine result page right at the top. So feature snippets were updated in August 2019, and they were intended to make the most up-to-date information available to the user straight away. And this actually flags a really important point about Google. The only thing Google cares about is its users, not the businesses, not the websites that rank there, but the people that use the service to look for stuff. So any update that will happen will only be designed to help that individual user get to the information they're looking for. A lot of you are probably thinking, well, what's the problem with that? That's awesome. You can get the information quicker. My business could be the one seen on Google to offer that information. The problem with that is that this update decreased click-through rates, because if people are getting the information they need right at the top without clicking on anything, then people aren't going onto your website experiencing your brand. So that had quite a big knock-on effect to a lot of businesses that were ranking at the top, that maybe were using a big content strategy to drive people to their website. Now these people were just getting the answer from the top of Google and not clicking onto their website, not following up with their user journey. We had a few pages within the Monumental website that had been chosen for feature snippets, and that had a real effect on our traffic, because prior to this we were just ranking #1 and people were coming onto our website, engaging with other pieces of content, something that is now no longer happening. So this is quite a big part. What that meant is that the titles and your meta titles had more of a job to actually get people not only to show that you had the answer, but show that there would be more to that answer, if you see what I mean. You had to give the answer within the feature snippet, but then use your title to entice people to actually come on and experience more of your website, delve in deeper into the content. So that really made that part of your SEO, so your meta titles and your H1s and your web titles, work much harder to act as a selling point or a selling pitch to get people onto your website. In September, so the end of last year, there was a core update, and this seemed to make a large difference of YMYL sites, but had minimal effect on ranking for others. So some updates will affect kind of specific websites more than others. Usually publishers are always the ones that fluctuate the most because of the amount of content that they create. As you looked at within your course, content has to be updated quite frequently for it to keep ranking highly. Google doesn't want to show anything that is outdated or no longer relevant. Then there was the BERT update. A lot of these updates usually have quite fun names. The big ones were like coffee, penguin, panda. So they've got quite fun names and they become quite a big thing. So this looked at search queries. So longer spoken or written queries are now better understood. Of course, now we have Alexa and Google Home, so voice search is really a thing that should be on a lot of marketers' minds because it's probably going to be the future. When we say, hey Siri, and stuff like that, that activates voice search. The reason why it should be on your mind is because people will use this channel way differently than when they're typing. When we're typing, we usually make things quite concise and maybe don't write full sentences. And us as marketeers and SEO people really tap into that. Whereas when you're speaking, you'll probably elaborate on it more because it's less of a commitment. Then there was algorithm updates and unconfigured updates. You can dive into this as deep as you want. So we always start off with our organic traffic review. So as we said, this was a very, very new website. So that's why the traffic is still quite low. It's, you know, well below 1,000. But the important part here is to really look for the organic traffic. So make sure anytime you're looking at analytics or anytime you're looking to report on SEO, you're using those segments to only look at organic traffic, or else your data will be completely wrong. So as you see here, we're just looking at organic traffic and we're just looking at users. So we can see for a number of months, it was a bit staggered and then it started going up. So the thing to consider with SEO is that it's not a paid strategy. You're not going to go from 0 to 100 overnight. It's something that has to gain momentum and you build on that momentum. And then usually there will be a burst when a number of your rankings go up at the same time. As I'm sure you can see, it's quite clear to see where that burst was, and that was at the end of February going into March. Unfortunately, COVID then happened. Not many people were shopping online for offices, so I have to keep in mind that this is a B2B business, which really impacted their business model and their sales and their traffic to their website. Bounce rate is also something that we monitor quite closely. The reason we do this is that bounce rate is a good indication of how engaged your audience is with your website. So it could help you make usability changes that help people get to where they need to go much quicker or much better. So bounce rate is when someone looks at one page of your website and then exits, so they don't delve into the content deep enough. But it also tells us, it gives us a good indication as well as to the quality of traffic. Good quality traffic is traffic that finds what they're looking for and will engage with your content. So a high bounce rate usually shows poor quality traffic. You would expect a higher bounce rate for paid channels. So if you're doing any sort of PPC, if you're doing any social media ads, usually you'd expect to see a bounce rate of like 80 to 90%. That's just the name of the game when you come to advertising, especially if you're doing social media advertising, because you're just targeting people based on who they are, not what they're looking for, like you can do with PPC and SEO. And then we look at engagement rate in general. So average session duration. So how long are people staying on our website? I would say to take this one with a bit of a pinch of salt, because this comes down again to your goals. If your goal is just to get someone to buy, they might be able to do that quite quickly and quite successfully. So you don't want your average duration on your website to be pushing you away from something that might be working really well. So it's important to also look at these all together and not in silo. So although our average session duration looked like it was kind of fluctuating, how were our lead generation? How was the number of people that got in touch, number of people that purchased something? Because if if one goes up and the other one comes down and it's actually positive, then that's okay. That's just telling us that people are getting from A to B really successfully, and we're reaching out to the right people and the right quality of audience is coming onto the website. So that one's, do take it with a bit of a pinch of salt. We then look at focus pages. So one of their focus pages was milk deliveries. And again, this is something that you will see fluctuating as Google is ranking things, as you're developing content. You will usually see quite a big spike after some time of engaging an agency. So that spike for us was towards the end of February, early March. And this is, as I said, when we started ranking as #1 in the UK. Bounce rate for that specific page as well, you'd want to see that go down or fluctuate. Engagement rate, as we said, you want to take that with a pinch of salt. But this is really the most important part, and that's your organic search conversions. So we were able to get 110 new businesses signed up in 3 months just using SEO and just really using the Content Hub to drive that. So that's quite important, is to then look at your key metric, which should be the thing that you're looking for. And every other thing that we've looked at is just supporting that and allowing you to make better choices and better decisions going forward. And we did this for each of the focus pages and so on. So that's a good example of the kind of reporting we would look at from an SEO point of view. The other thing I also want to show you guys is the software that we use. I know that within the course, it shows you a number of different businesses and websites that you can use to report on SEO. I like to use Moz just because it has a really fun kind of interface and it's quite easy to find what you're looking for. But I thought it would be quite helpful to show you what that looks like and the kind of things that you can find within it. So if you were looking to kind of start SEO for yourself, you can see how to go about it. Don't know why I'm pointing at it because you can't see where I'm pointing. But I'm sharing my screen now so you can see what a dashboard looks like within Moz. And this is for Monumental Marketing. Let's make it monthly because that will give us some more rich data and it will show how we've improved within that month. So as you can see, this is just the main dashboard. When you land on it, it picks out the most important parts of your website. Our website, of course, took a bit of a hit, like most services website did during COVID. So the total visits are quite low for the last month. But in comparison to the month before, we've gone up by 50% because people are kind of starting to come back into their element. And I think that's quite an important point, is really think of what's happening in the world and comparing it to data. Data is great, but you need to apply it and use context to actually understand what it means. It will also show your domain authority, and you can then choose 3 competitors that you want to see how well you're performing against. So you want to choose a competitor that's maybe a bit out of reach. So maybe someone that's much bigger than you or much more global than you. And then maybe more people that are along the same lines as you, so you're able to see exactly where you fit. Domain authority is really good because it kind of gives you an idea of how rankable you are, how strong your website is to overtake people or to rank for new keywords or new content within Google. External links, as we said, really, really, really important. This is what accounts for 60% of your SEO. So use this tool really carefully and keep an eye on it, because it's quite good to also recognize where those links are coming from, and it could be a good opportunity for partnerships or for collaborations and content and stuff like that. So we saw that this month we managed to acquire another 14 backlinks, taking us to a total of 254, so that's great. 10 out of our 80 keywords are ranking between number 1 and number 10, which is great. And that's another 2 in comparison to the previous month. The part of this software that I love the most is the ranking, because it makes it really easy to see where you're at. So within this, you can kind of see how things fluctuate within your search visibility. Search visibility is good for really big brands that want to know where exactly their brand fits. But for most of my clients who are startups, they want to know exactly where they are and what that means. So with this graph, you can just change it to rankings and it will show you your development of rankings. So this looks at June 2019, and we can see that in June 2019, we had 1 ranking between 1 and 3, we had 2 rankings between 4 and 10, and we had quite a few rankings that didn't even make it to the top 50. This was before we introduced our own SEO, before we hired people to actually manage, within our team to help us work on our own channels as well. We're a startup, so we had to do everything a bit kind of hand to mouth. If we compare it to this May, we have 2 keywords that are at the top. We've got 8, which are in 4 to 10. We've got 5 there. We've got 21 there, and 44, which are rising up. The good opportunity here, although it's still not great and there's still a long way to go, is that it shows us how many keywords are in the next band down that could have a bit more attention, a bit more optimizing to push them up to the next. And we call that low-hanging fruit. So low-hanging fruit in SEO is really powerful because it makes a big difference quite quickly. Within this, then we can also see where we're ranking and what we're ranking for, and which pages we're ranking, which pages are ranking for these keywords. So that's quite important, because I think a lot of the time you might end up ranking for pages that you didn't actually know were targeting that specific keyword. So this is quite a good way to manage where you're at and how you can then mix up your content, change your strategy, update your user experience to reflect how people are coming to your website. And this is a really good channel and a really good software and an opportunity to really dive into your SEO further. So I think that was kind of my main points. I did want to keep this as a very pit stop tour, but focused very much on the reporting and the software side, because I felt that that's usually what's lacking within the Digital Marketing Institute content, is actual, let's dive in and see real numbers. The last thing I will show you before I open it up for questions is a kind of more detailed, well, less detailed, more number focused case study to see exactly like what the steps were and what the outcomes were. After this, I'll jump onto your questions. So remember to type them in now so I can jump on them straight after I talk you through this next piece. So with SEO, there's a number of things that we can do, as we've just discovered. And with this case study, it's quite a good kind of storytelling way to show you exactly what we did for this particular brand. So this is a case study for British Military Fitness. They're the UK's leading outdoor fitness provider. They have over 500 locations. So there are a lot of different parts that came into the SEO for this brand. So the first thing that we did, and feel free to kind of screenshot this, take notes, because this is actually quite a good way to go around your own company's SEO or any of your clients if you're working in that industry. So that basically means it's not specific to fitness or to the UK. So the first thing that we did is look at site structure. So site structure, you looked at within your course, but that's again the kind of pyramid thing. You start off with your homepage, you have a couple of supporting pages, a couple of supporting pages within those, and so on. So you're building out a really nice structure for your website. What that means is the bottom pages, there's a lot of them, they're ranking for different things. They're going to keep pushing authority up towards your homepage, which will become really strong and overall build a really powerful machine of a website. The next thing you want to look at is your usability. How easy is it for people to get from the homepage to where they need to go? But also then considering if people are coming in down here within your journey, how successful are they to then get to where they need to go? So thinking of usability with a number of different entry points, that's really important. Remember, Google's first thing is looking after their individual users. So the easier it is for users to get to where they need to get the information they need to understand or read, the easier it is going to be for you to rank highly and prominently on Google. And the last thing we looked at as well in this kind of initial step was our local SEO. So as we said, there's 500 locations, and local SEO is really powerful if you have specific locations that you can drive people to. We then identified the top keywords, as we already said. That's something that is in line with your company and marketing goals. We identified pages with high-performing keywords and low-ranking difficulty, and we call this low-hanging fruit, as we said. So these are pages that are performing well, and the rankability isn't, the difficulty to rank isn't too high, which gives us an opportunity to actually go up in the search engine result page really easily and a lot of the times quite quickly. We also identified search terms and analytics to spot opportunities. Launch Resource Hub with Content Cluster strategy to increase search visibility, so that's a content hub. Created soft conversions opportunities on the content hub. So soft conversions are things that might not be a direct sale, so such as sign up to a newsletter, follow us on Instagram, things like that, that can keep the user engaged with something that might not, whenever they're not ready to make a full commitment to you yet. And then we also created a backlinking resource opportunity. So we got 100 influencers to 100 bloggers to write a recipe for us to include within our website. And what we did is we asked them to create that recipe and put it on their own website and link to British Military Fitness. So basically with this one page on the website, we had 100 different targeted blogs that would drive it to that one page and pushing our rankability and domain authority on SEO. So really, really good. And then continuous development in all broad searches and research search related terms allowed us to create that content and keep building on that. So what were the results? So off the back of this search engine marketing activity, in 6 months, we were able to reduce the acquisition cost to £2.60. So acquisition was the cost of all our time, all our agency, all our staff, divided by the number of people that had signed up through the website, through organic channels, and that gave us £2.60, which is really, really cheap. We also launched new beginner weekends. We saw a lot of people were scared about fitness and were looking for beginner fitness options. So what we did is we literally packaged the same product a bit differently and used that as a way to drive traffic to the page. As we said, we launched a new way of people to sign up. You know, we want that journey to be as easy as possible from A to B. So we started a 3-step sign-up process. So that increased our sign-ups massively because that was our first step within the previous page of usability. We also used research and trends to tap into running clubs. You know, fitness in general is quite a trendy sort of industry. So tapping into the trends was really, really important and was able to actually double our business in the space of 6 months because of these running clubs. And then targeted new backlinks opportunities. So Google also looks at how relatable pieces of content are, and you can kind of create relationships between content by going out to new people. So with fitness, you usually go after, you know, the men's fitness, women's fitness magazines and stuff like that. But we actually went more into lifestyle, which meant that we were able to create a relationship between our brands and between lifestyle searches. So that was a really popular, that was a really successful backlinking strategy for us because our competitors just never thought of it. They just went down the fitness route. So this is quite a good kind of example to just wrap up our session and kind of bring everything into the one. I see there's a couple of questions that come in. You're welcome to submit any more as we go through. So what does the H stand for in H1 and H2, etc.? So H is headers. So header 1, header 2, header 3. Does the hub live within your website? So that's a really good question, and that's a really hot topic of conversations within SEO. So probably till about 18 months ago, a lot of hubs lived external to the website, the main website. This was done to have another domain linked to you, but of course then that domain needed to be built up as well to then have enough authority to drive authority to you. So as SEO developed and as people kind of understood it better, worked on it more, the kind of general consensus was actually build the hub within your website unless you have a lot of resource to host something completely different. My general advice would be to always build it within your website because then it creates a much more in-depth internal linking strategy, which will then rank you higher in terms of usability in Google's eyes. So my advice would be very much to build it within your website and use it as a resource for internal linking as opposed to backlinking. Is layout the main difference between this and a blog? I think the main difference between a hub and a blog is, as we said, the chronological aspect. So a blog is very chronological. It's usually not categorized. It's usually sort of like almost like a news piece of, you know, this is what's happening and what happened last week. Whereas a hub really taps into cornerstone content, which is content that's really important to your brand, or hero content, because you're able to show this differently. And it really makes use of categories and tags. So you're able to categorize the content a bit like we showed on the Monumental Marketing website, where there is the main hub page where it pulls from different categories, the kind of popular content of the month or the content that we really want to hero. And then it gives you the opportunity to delve deeper into the categories and have more of a rankability. Categories, really important because a lot of the times they will come into your link. So for us, it's, you know, monumentalmarketing.co.uk/blog/category name before then you get the article name. So putting that category up there will allow you to actually rank for that category itself. So pick category names that have good search volume, high search volume, because you'll be able to actually put it into your link, which is quite a key part of SEO. Generating just reading the last question, report normally at the end of the campaign or on demand, which is better? That's a really good question. So should we generate reports at the end of a campaign or just whenever we need to? This kind of depends on how you're working with SEO. So most SEO work is usually not a campaign. It's usually something that is a maintenance and can't speak anymore. It's something that happens every month, and it's a retained service, as we call it at Monumental. We would suggest to always have a bit of a budget every month to keep that. As we said, recency really plays into it. There's trends to look out for. There's things that need updated and optimized. So you'd want to make sure that there's enough budget and time to be able to do that on a monthly basis. With that in mind, I would suggest to do SEO reporting once a month. At the end of the month is quite good because you can kind of look back and see how this month performed maybe versus this time last year, the month before. But being an organic channel, you're not going to want to be reporting on it every other day. So I would suggest to maybe just do it once a month, but then have the ability to also do on demand should specific questions come up. But with reporting, always understand what your key metrics are and what is your measure of success. I've seen it's for the national, doesn't make difference if it's international. It is. So there's a big difference between local, national, and international SEO. Usually when you speak to an agency, the big difference is price and cost. But even within the company itself, as we said at the beginning, the use of language is different. There might be the actual language that is different. We work a lot in the Middle East. So a lot of our websites have to be in Arabic as well as in English. There's going to be a dual search that goes on. That is where the bigger work comes in, is being able to then segment those searches and rank successfully for different uses of language and different languages themselves. So it does make a big difference. If you're wanting to kind of stick to just one primary language, so for example, if it's SEO in the UK, sure, it can rank in the US because they use pretty much the same language, like Australia, South Africa, and that could be less impacted. However, you will be up against more relevant search results in those specific territories. As we said, Google does everything for its users and it wants to show the most relevant results. A way that it looks at most relevant results is where that company is based or where that website is based. So although I rank #1 in the UK, I'm not as relevant in Australia, if you see what I mean. So relevancy is really is a really important part of SEO. So I think that's all the questions that have come in. Any more questions or anything that I can go over before we close this off? Oh, new message. Mind blown. Well, I'm happy you're mind blown. How better way, no better way to start a weekend. But yes, thank you so much for listening in today. If there are any questions that come up as you work through it, feel free to reach out to me. Happy to answer any quick questions. I'm just Mr. Jamie Love on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram. So whatever is easiest for you. Do use the Monumental Marketing website, blog hub section. There is a lot of really useful content from beginner setup all the way to usability, all the way to trends and spotting things. So it's quite a good resource when you're looking for SEO specific news or, as you saw, digital marketing, social media, and even PR. So thanks again for checking in. Have an awesome weekend, and I will speak to you soon.
Bueno, espero que hayan disfrutado muchísimo este módulo de las clases de Digital Marketing que vamos a tener todos los sábados y espero que se vuelvan a conectar el próximo sábado a las 11 de la mañana nuevamente para seguir con el siguiente módulo. Muchas gracias a todos.